We're going to do a draw and tell story, so I need some tools like a pencil and an eraser. And as I tell the story, I want you to draw along with me, copying what I draw. Each part of the story has a drawing that goes with it. This story is called Cousin Valdamir. This is the story of a bat named Spooky. I'm going to draw our bat Spooky right here. Let's give him a set of wings. There we go. There's the bat, Spooky. Spooky lived far, far away amongst the Carpathian Mountains. Let's draw those Carpathian Mountains. They're big, tall, steep mountains with big, tall, pointed peaks on them. There's our Carpathian Mountains. Spooky was flapping about in the Carpathian Mountains one night when he happened to flap past his mailbox. He noticed that there was a letter there for him, and he flapped down excitedly to see who it was from, because Spooky very rarely got letters from anyone. As soon as he saw the postmark, Duncan, British Columbia, Canada, Spooky knew that the letter was from his cousin, Vladimir. Vladimir was the only person that Spooky knew in Canada. Cousin Spooky, the letter read, "We are having a family reunion this year here in Duncan. Please come." And it was signed, "Your cousin Vlad." Well, Spooky packed his bag then and there. He put in dried worm tongues, pickled rhino horns, and marinated frog eyes. Party food that he'd been saving for just such an occasion. Let's draw Spooky's bag here that he's put all those delightful things in. There's the bag that he can carry. Inside he's got his marinated frog eyes and pickled rhino horns and dried worm tongues. I didn't even know worms had tongues. Then Spooky started off, flapping, 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 through the dark Carpathian night. By dawn he was exhausted, and seeing a man walking on the road below, he swooped down and he asked him, "Am I in Duncan, British Columbia, Canada yet?" "No," laughed the man, "but you're almost in Budapest. If you want to get to Canada, you had better take an airplane. It is a long way to fly." So Spooky walked to the airport in Budapest. He sent a telegram to his cousin, and he bought a ticket. In that airplane, off he flew, over the mountains, over the sea, and finally he landed in the town of Duncan on Vancouver Island. So right here I'm going to draw the airport that Spooky walked to, and then Spooky gets on a plane, and the plane flies over top of the mountains, and it lands back down here. And right here, this is the town of Duncan on Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada. That's where we live. There we go, the flight path from airport to airport. You have to use your imagination a little bit. When he got off the plane, the airport was deserted. Spooky had expected Vladimir to be there to meet him, but there wasn't a soul around. He waited, and he waited. Spooky had just decided to take the very next plane back to the Carpathian Mountains when the clock began to strike midnight. Bong, bong, bong. A strange little gnomish sort of man scuttled through the door and beckoned to Spooky to follow him. Outside on the driveway there was a huge black coach pulled by 7 spectral horses. The gnome opened the door. Spooky climbed up onto the velvet seat, and the door closed. A moment later, he could feel the coach moving swiftly down a long hill, and then all of a sudden, they were going up again, rumbling and bumbling over a rough track. So here he is getting inside the car, and they go down here with the coach, and then all of a sudden, they go up a hill. So we're going down and then up. The door opened and the gnome motioned for Spooky to get down. Then without a word he jumped up onto his seat and whipped up the horses. In a moment they had disappeared back down the road by which they had come. Spooky could see that the road dropped away into a canyon full of jagged pinnacle rocks. Let's draw those jagged pinnacle rocks. Those jagged rocks in this canyon. Gathering all his strength and clutching his bag in his claws, he flew wearily across the canyon and landed on the other side. So here is Spooky on top here, and he's going to fly over top of that canyon of jagged rocks and land here on the other side. He walked along a rough path through the forest, and he sat down to rest. His head began to nod, and he was almost asleep when he heard a noise behind him. He turned to see a witch sitting there, grinning her snaggle-toothed grin. "Come for a ride, dearie," she cackled. "Climb onto my broom, and I will take you where you need to go." What could Spooky do? He climbed onto the broom behind the witch, and then zoom! They soared off to the west. So let's add a little bit more to our drawing. Here's Spooky walking down the trail, and he walks way over here. And over here he meets the witch, and they get on the broom, and zoom! Off they go in that direction. So we have a little bit of trail to draw in. Again, use your imagination. And then on the broom, zoom, flying off that way. They soared to the west and turned and swooped back toward the east so fast that Spooky had to clutch onto the broomstick with all of his strength to keep from being swept off by the wind. And then they stopped. So here they are, they fly this way, and then zoom! They fly way over here. And then they stop. "End of the line, dearie," said the witch. "There's the place you're looking for. Go carefully." Spooky started across the field to the hulking dark shape that the witch had shown him. Let's draw the pathway that Spooky takes. He walks back this way. So we got the broom flight, and then Spooky walking towards some shape in the darkness. Up closer, he saw that it was a massive, rambling house. All the windows were dark. Several were broken. Shutters hung crooked on their hinges. The garden was totally overgrown with weeds. Spooky walked up to the creaking stairs, and he lifted the heavy knocker. The boom, boom, boom noise echoed through the house. A light came on in one of the tower rooms. There was the sound of footsteps. The door creaked open. A tall man, dressed all in black, stood there. He held one arm draped in a black cape across in front of him, hiding all of his face but his eyes. Those eyes stared at the little bat, making a shiver run down his wings. And then all the lights came on. The gnome and the witch called out, "Surprise!" And the vampire swept aside his cape and laughed. "Welcome to Duncan on Vancouver Island, Cousin Spooky. You are just in time for the party." What we have to add to our drawing just to finish it off is we're going to add wings like this. These are his wings that were shivering with fright. And we want to add the eyes that we can see when the tall man who answers the door is right there. I think we'll just also add a little line across here too, just to finish that part off. And there we go. There's the character that we've created from this story, as we drew along each part of the story, we ended up with, what's our picture of? If you said, a vampire, you are correct. That's the story of Cousin Vladimir. And this is Vladimir, a vampire. Okay, the only thing our picture could use is probably some color. So I've got my pencil crayons here. Let's add a little bit of color here. You can join me by grabbing your crayons. I've colored in my vampire. They're usually fairly pale-skinned, dark hair, dark eyebrows, gleaming red eyes, a little bit of blood on his fangs, his black cape. Gave him a little bit of a red sort of bow tie part to his cape. There's our Cousin Vladimir.